The first time I noticed my reflection lagging behind me, I was flossing my teeth in the bathroom at 2:17 a.m., trying not to look myself in the eyes. I remember the exact time because I just checked the microwave clock on my way down the hall, doing the math in my head. If I fell asleep right then, I'd get 4 hours before my alarm. 4 hours to drag myself through another shift, another day of pretending I wasn't tired and jumpy and stretched thin. The bathroom light was too bright. It always made my face look harsher, like it was judging me for being awake when everyone else in the building was asleep. I was staring at the sink, moving the floss back and forth between my teeth, when I caught a small, wrong movement. In the mirror, my hand was still. In reality, my hand had already moved. It was so small that if I'd been even slightly more tired, I would have missed it. But I froze, floss stretched between my fingers, and watched as my reflection finished the motion a fraction of a second after I did. A tiny delay, like a bad video call. I blinked. In the mirror, I blinked a beat later. A chill went down my spine so fast it made my knees weak. I dropped the floss in the sink. It landed with a wet slap that sounded way too loud in that cramped bathroom. Okay. No, I whispered to myself. I'm just tired. I'm just tired. I waved my hand slowly in front of my face, fingers splayed. The reflection followed, but there it was again, barely a beat behind. Not much, just enough that I could feel it. Like a person walking too close behind you on an empty street. My heart started to pound. I felt every thud in my throat. I don't know how long I stood there, playing stupid little games with myself, lifting my eyebrows, smiling, turning my head. Every single time, the reflection followed just slightly late, like it had to think about what it was supposed to do. I laughed. It came out thin and cracked. Yeah, okay. I need to sleep. I turned off the light and left the bathroom without looking back. But that feeling, the awareness of the mirror behind me, of something not quite me still catching up, followed me down the hallway and into my bedroom. I did not sleep for 4 hours. I don't think I slept at all. The next morning, the whole thing looked stupid in daylight. I stood in front of the same bathroom mirror, hair tied up, toothbrush in my mouth, staring myself down like I was daring my reflection to mess up. It didn't. Every move I made, it made with me. Perfectly synced. My stomach twisted with embarrassment. I felt like an idiot for scaring myself over nothing. I even checked the wall behind the mirror, pushing against it to see if maybe the glass was loose or warped. The mirror was old, the kind that comes with those cheap apartments where every surface holds the ghosts of someone else's life. The silver backing, the slightly yellowed edges, even a tiny black spot in the bottom corner where the reflective coating had started to die. It was just an old mirror, nothing else. I forced myself to shrug it off. All day at work, I told myself a version of the same story. I was exhausted. I'd probably microdosed standing there. Maybe my brain filled in the gaps wrong. Maybe my eyes twitched. There were 100 ways to explain it without involving the word wrong or impossible. Still, when I got home that night, I avoided the bathroom. It sounds stupid, doesn't it? A grown woman afraid of her own reflection. But I kept catching myself glancing toward that doorway like something might be standing there, waiting. Around midnight, my bladder won the argument. I flipped on the bathroom light, walked in, and planted myself in front of the mirror. My heart was hammering again, like it had a memory of its own. Do it now, I muttered at my reflection. If you're going to be weird, do it now. I lifted my right hand quickly. The reflection lifted its right hand with me, in perfect sync. I tried a few more things, jerking my head, tapping my cheek. Everything matched. I let out a long breath, feeling foolish again. I leaned closer, studying the tiny lines at the corners of my eyes, the faint shadow under one cheekbone where I never fully lost the bruise from the accident years ago. The memory flashed. Headlights, glass, my sister's scream. I pulled back. Just tired, I told myself. Just tired. I turned away. And that's when it happened. I saw it out of the corner of my eye in the mirror, my reflection turning her head a fraction of a second too late, like she was pretending she hadn't been staring at me. The nausea hit so hard I had to grab the edge of the sink. The third night, I recorded it. I don't know why I thought having video proof would help. Maybe I thought that if the delay didn't show up on camera, that would mean it was all in my head and I could finally untangle myself from it. Or maybe I already knew and I just wanted someone, anyone, even a future version of myself, to witness it with me. I propped my phone up on a stack of folded towels facing the mirror. Bathroom lights on, door closed, no windows, no drafts. I wanted to eliminate every excuse before my brain could build another one. I hit record and stepped back. "Okay," I said, feeling ridiculous speaking to my own reflection. "Let's do this." I raised my left arm quickly, like a signal. In real time, I felt it again. The flicker. The not quite synced movement, like my reflection had to buffer before reacting. But it was still small enough that I wondered if I'd imagined it. I went through a series of exaggerated motions, counting out loud. 1, 2, 3. On 3, I jumped and clapped my hands over my head. My chest was tight, my skin prickling. I tried to keep my face neutral, like I was afraid that if I gave away too much emotion, the reflection would use it against me. When I'd had enough, I stopped the recording. For a few seconds, I just stood there, not wanting to press play. Then I did. The video was grainy, the lighting harsh. I watched myself step into frame. Tired eyes, tank top, hair in an unflattering knot. I watched myself raise my arm, jump, clap, count. My stomach turned cold. On the screen, there was no doubt. The reflection was late. Not by much, but enough that if you scrubbed back and forth, you could see the 1-2 rhythm clearly. My real body moved. Then the reflection followed, like an echo. At one point, I could see my lips starting to form the word "to" before my reflection's mouth even opened. My face tightened. Then the face in the glass caught up. I played it again. And again. The longer I watched, the less I recognized the woman in the mirror. She looked like me, but she moved like something wearing my body like a costume. I held my phone so tight, my fingers hurt. "No," I whispered. I zoomed in, studied the pixels. That's when I saw something that made my throat close. At exactly 10 seconds into the video, there was a frame where my reflection's eyes weren't on me. They were looking slightly off over my shoulder at something that wasn't there. After that, it got worse fast. The delays became more obvious, like whatever was inside the glass had stopped pretending. I'd be brushing my hair and watch my reflection finish a stroke after I'd already stopped. I'd laugh at something on my phone and see my reflection's face relax, then smile late, like it was mimicking something it didn't feel. Sometimes, my reflection would linger in expressions I'd already moved past. I'd furrow my brows, then smooth them, but the woman in the mirror stayed frowning for half a heartbeat longer. It was like watching footage of myself played back on a slight delay, only I was seeing it live. I stopped inviting people over. I stopped FaceTiming anyone in my apartment because I didn't want my reflection caught in someone else's screen, doing something I couldn't control. I even bought a cheap handheld mirror from the pharmacy, just to see if it happened there too. The first time I tried it, my hands were shaking. I walked into the living room, far away from the bathroom, and sat on the worn gray couch. I held the little mirror up and looked. For a few seconds, everything was normal. Then I smiled. In the small oval of glass, I watched my mouth curve a fraction of a second too late. I nearly dropped the mirror. It wasn't the bathroom. It wasn't the apartment. It was me, or it was every reflective surface, or it was something that followed me around, waiting in any piece of glass willing to hold me. I turned the mirror face down on the coffee table and walked away like it might bite me. From that point on, every shiny surface felt hostile. Elevator doors, car windows, the black screen of my turned-off TV, even a spoon in the sink. Sometimes, when I passed a dark window at night, I'd glimpse my reflection still turning to look long after I'd already walked by. I started sleeping with the bathroom door closed and a towel draped over the mirror. It didn't help. The first time the mirror showed me something that hadn't happened yet, I didn't realize that's what it was. I thought it was just another glitch, another little horror to stack on top of the others. It was a Thursday. I remember because I'd just gotten home from a late shift, and my feet hurt so badly that every step felt like walking on hot sand. I tossed my bag on the couch and went straight to the bathroom to wash my face. When I flipped on the light, the mirror hit me with my own image so harshly I flinched. My hair was up in a rough bun. There were dark circles under my eyes, and there, blooming along my right cheekbone, was a deep purple bruise. I froze. The skin on my face didn't hurt. I reached up, fingers trembling, and touched the spot in the real world. Smooth, normal, just skin. In the mirror, my fingers pressed against a swollen, ugly mark. For a second, all I could hear was the roaring of blood in my ears. I stumbled back, almost tripping over the bath mat. The woman in the mirror staggered with me, her bruise pulsing dark under the fluorescent lights. "No," I said, voice shaking. "No, no, no." I turned off the light. I went to bed without washing my face. I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, my heart racing so hard I thought it might bruise the inside of my rib cage. When my alarm went off the next morning, my first thought was that it had all been some sleep-deprived hallucination. Then I stood up. My foot slipped on something on the floor, the shirt I'd left crumpled beside the bed. I pitched forward, hit the nightstand, and felt a white-hot shock of pain explode across my right cheek. I screamed before I could stop myself. The corner of the nightstand had caught me perfectly. I staggered to the bathroom, one hand clamped to my face, and flipped on the light. Blood. Swelling. A fresh, ugly bruise already blooming under my skin. It looked exactly like the one I'd seen the night before. Exactly. After that, I stopped pretending this was just in my head. I tried to tell a friend once. I almost did. We were sitting in a booth at a noisy bar, and she leaned forward and said, "You look tired. Are you sure you're okay?" With that careful tone people use when they're trying to ask if you're coming apart without actually saying it. The words rose to my tongue. My reflection is out of sync. The mirror showed me a bruise before I had it. I think something in the glass knows what's going to happen to me. But then I pictured her face, the way her expression would shudder, the invisible distance that would open up between us. I pictured the way people looked at me after the accident, when I said I could still hear the crunch of metal and my sister's voice telling me to, just look at me, even after they told me she was gone. So I smiled with sore cheeks and said, "I'm fine, just not sleeping." And the mirror kept my secrets. It also kept showing me things. Little things at first. One evening, I was in the kitchen rinsing dishes. In the microwave door's reflection, I saw my future self drop the plate she was washing. It slipped from her soapy fingers, shattered on the tile, shards skittering under the cabinet. I blinked and stepped back, heart racing. The plate was still in my hands. Nothing had happened. The floor was clean. I set the plate down gently in the drying rack and backed away. A minute later, I forgot and reached for another, my mind somewhere else. My fingers were slippery from the soap. The plate slid, crashed to the floor, and broke into 3 jagged pieces. The sound made my teeth ache. Another time, I caught my reflection glancing down at my phone before I did, eyes narrowing at a notification that hadn't appeared yet. A few seconds later, my phone buzzed on the counter. An unknown number. A 3-word text that made my chest tighten. "I forgive you." No name, no context. Just those words, green bubble against a black background, like a ghost had finally gotten reception. By then, I'd started talking to my reflection. Not out loud at first. But in my head, when I was brushing my teeth or washing my hands, I'd think, "What do you know? What happens to me?" And wait to see if her expression changed. Sometimes I'd swear I saw a flicker of pity. Sometimes I saw something worse, disappointment. It didn't take long for the mirror to move from little things to bigger ones. The night everything changed, I'd had an argument with my mother over the phone. She'd brought up my sister again, the way she always did when she was tired and bitter and wanted to bleed on someone. If you hadn't insisted on driving, I hung up before I could hear the rest. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely plug the charger into my phone. I caught a glimpse of myself in the dark TV screen, a hollow-eyed woman with a bruise-shaped memory under one cheek. I didn't want to see myself like that. I went to the bathroom. The towel I'd been keeping over the mirror was crumpled on the counter like something that had crawled down from the glass and died there. I don't remember taking it off. I just remember standing there, facing the mirror, my throat tight and my eyes burning. "Show me," I whispered. I don't know why I said it. That's the worst part. I invited it, whatever it was. I stared at my reflection, trying to keep my expression neutral. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then the room in the mirror darkened. Not in real life. The fluorescent light above me hummed like always. But in the glass, the edges of the room seemed to fall into shadow. The woman standing where I was should have been me, but she looked different. Her hair was down, tangled, her t-shirt was wrinkled. There was a reddish smear on her collar I couldn't quite make out. Her eyes were wide, whites showing all the way around like someone who had been terrified for a long time and forgotten how to unclench. The bathroom around her looked wrong too. The door behind her was slightly ajar. Beyond it, the hallway was black. My own door was shut. I swallowed hard. "Is that me?" I whispered. The other me in the mirror moved. Slowly, like it hurt. She raised her hand and pressed it against the inside of the glass. Fingers splayed. Her palm lined up almost perfectly with mine, except for that tiny delay that made my skin crawl. I lifted my hand, shaking, and touched the mirror. The glass was cold. Too cold. A deep, bone-aching chill that radiated into my fingertips. "When?" I whispered. "When is this?" The other me's lips moved. At first no sound came out. Then I realized I couldn't hear her because it was silent on my side. Her world seemed to have no audio, just the hum of blood rushing in my own ears. She mouthed something slowly. "Stop lying." I opened my mouth, confusion and panic sparking in equal measure. "About what?" She blinked hard, tears spilling down her face. Tears didn't fall on my side. "Stop lying." Her gaze flicked past my shoulder toward the darkness in her hallway. I turned my head. Behind me, my own hallway was empty. Door closed. Light on. I looked back at the mirror. In the glass, something was moving in the darkness. Tall. Narrow. Wrong. Like the outline of a person stretched in a funhouse mirror, all limbs and shadow. The other me pressed both hands to the glass now, her mouth forming words faster, desperate. It took me several seconds to catch the pattern. He's already here. My breath hitched. "There's no one here," I said, my voice barely more than air. "There's no one here." The door handle behind her, it should have been behind me, started to turn, slowly, like whoever was on the other side knew she was watching and wanted her to see. My legs went weak. I had to lock my knees to keep from sinking to the floor. She shook her head violently, hair whipping around her face. "Run." That's what she mouthed next. "Run." I did not run. I did something worse. I froze. Every instinct screamed at me to get out of the bathroom, out of the apartment, out of any place that had walls and mirrors and doors someone could quietly unlock. But I just stood there, transfixed by the unfolding horror in the glass. The door behind the other me swung open. The thing in the hallway wasn't tall after all. It was exactly my height, exactly my shape. It stepped into the light of the bathroom with a sick kind of grace, as if it had been practicing in the dark. At first it looked like a shadow. Then, as it moved closer to her, it took on depth, features, substance. It was me. Same face, same bruise faintly visible under the skin. But something was wrong with the eyes. They were too flat, like marbles set in flesh, reflecting light without ever letting it in. My doppelganger stepped up behind the other me and placed her hands gently on her shoulders. The real me, if she was real, if I was real, I don't know anymore, flinched, body tensing. In my bright bathroom, alone and untouched, my shoulders twitched in sympathy. Phantom pressure. I could almost feel cold fingers digging into my skin. The fake me looked up. Our eyes met through 2 layers of glass, and something else. Her lips curved into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. And then, for the first time since all of this started, my reflection moved before I did. The other me jerked, body arching slightly as if something sharp had pierced her from behind. The shadow me's arms wrapped around her in a twisted parody of a hug, hands locking at her chest. Her mouth opened in a soundless scream. I stumbled backward, knocking over the cup of toothbrushes. They clattered across the sink, one rolling to the floor. In the mirror, the scene continued without me. I was no longer there at all. Only her and the thing wearing my face and the door swinging slowly shut. The light in the mirrored bathroom flickered, then went out. My bathroom stayed bright. I grabbed the towel off the counter and flung it over the mirror with shaking hands. For a moment, all I saw was my own warped reflection in the chrome of the faucet, eyes wild, chest heaving. Then I turned and ran. I didn't stay in the apartment that night. I grabbed my keys, my phone, a jacket, and bolted. I barely remember going down the stairs, or the way the night air felt when I finally made it out onto the street. All I remember is the overwhelming need to put distance between myself and any reflective surface. I ended up at a cheap motel off the highway, the kind with buzzing neon signs and doors that stick in their frames. The woman at the front desk gave me a bored look as I checked in, her gaze flicking over my face like she was used to people showing up in the middle of the night, shaking and red-eyed. The room smelled like old smoke and disinfectant. There was a mirror over the dresser. I walked straight to it and yanked it down. The nails screamed against the wall. The whole frame crashed to the floor and cracked, the reflective surface splintering into a spiderweb of fractured me's. A tiny, hysterical laugh bubbled out of my chest. I slept in my clothes, on top of the covers, facing the door. At some point in the early morning, I woke up to the feeling of being watched. The room was dim, lit only by the orange glow of the sign outside, pulsing through the thin curtains. I lay very still, listening. The quiet was thick. The hum of the air conditioner. The distant rush of traffic. I turned my head slowly toward the broken mirror on the floor. In the largest shard, I could see part of the room. The corner of the bed, the chair, the door, and me. I was lying on my side in the reflection, just like I was in real life. Only in the mirror, my eyes were already open, staring straight at me. We looked at each other for a long time. Then the mirrored version of me smiled, a slow, deliberate curl of the lips. I hadn't moved. My skin went cold. I reached down, groping blindly for the bedside lamp, and knocked it over. The bulb shattered, the room plunging into deeper dark. In the crooked mirror on the floor, my other self kept on smiling long after I'd squeezed my eyes shut. I wish I could tell you I went to a doctor, or a priest, or checked myself into some quiet facility where people in white coats could tell me whether I was haunted or insane. I didn't. I went back home. It wasn't courage. It was something uglier, a stubborn, exhausted kind of resignation. The understanding that whatever this was, it would follow me no matter where I ran. That the problem wasn't the apartment, or the bathroom, or that specific piece of glass. It was me. Or what was tied to me. When I opened my front door, the air inside felt thicker, like the apartment had been holding its breath while I was gone. The towel was still over the bathroom mirror. For a while I just stood in the hall, staring at that closed door, my heart thudding against my ribs like it was trying to get out first. Finally, I forced myself to move. I stepped into the bathroom and shut the door behind me. My hands shook as I reached for the towel. I didn't want to look. Every part of me was screaming not to, but I also knew that not looking wouldn't stop anything. I pulled the towel down. The mirror showed the bathroom exactly as it was. Harsh light, chipped sink, a faint smear of dried toothpaste. Me standing there, pale and tired, hair pulled back. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then my reflection blinked. I didn't. I stared. Very slowly, she tilted her head to the side. I felt my neck muscles tense, resisting the urge to mimic her. My chest was so tight I could barely breathe. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice thin. She didn't answer. She just watched me, eyes scanning my face, my shoulders, like she was memorizing every inch, like she was inspecting a piece of meat. After what felt like forever, she lifted her hand and traced a shape on the inside of the glass with one finger. 3 letters. L-I-E. The mirror didn't fog. There was no condensation. But for a heartbeat, I could see the word hovering there as clearly as if someone had written it in steam. I swallowed hard. "I'm not lying," I whispered. "I tell the truth. I always—" Images flashed in my mind. The accident. My sister's hand in mine. The way I'd told the police I was sure the other driver had run the light, even though deep down I knew I'd been looking at my phone. I closed my eyes. When I opened them again, the word was gone. My reflection was perfectly in sync with me again. Every movement matched exactly. You'd think that would be a relief. It wasn't. Because now I knew when the mirror was normal, it was pretending. When it lagged, when it jumped ahead, when it showed me things that hadn't happened yet, that was when it slipped. That was when it showed me pieces of whatever future it had already seen for me. Bruises, broken plates, text messages, a version of me with someone else's hands around her. I don't know why it shows me what it does. I don't know if it's warning me, punishing me, or just watching with a kind of cold curiosity to see whether I'll walk the same steps, make the same mistakes. Sometimes I try to use it. If I catch a glimpse of something, my phone lighting up, a door left unlocked, a dark figure in the hallway, I change what I do. I throw the phone away instead of answering. I lock the door. I sleep with the lights on. Sometimes I still end up exactly where the reflection said I would. Sometimes I don't. That might be worse, because it means there are branches, timelines, possible futures where I run, where I stay, where I tell the truth, where I keep lying. And in at least one of them, I die in my own hallway with something that looks like me standing over my body. I don't know which line I'm on right now. Tonight, before I started recording this, I went to the bathroom and stood in front of the mirror one more time. I wanted to see if it would show me anything about this, about me sitting here talking to you, about the words coming out of my mouth, about whether telling this story changes anything. At first, everything was normal. I raised my hand, she raised hers. I smiled, she smiled. I leaned in close enough that my breath fogged the glass, just a little, right at the center. For a second, I saw my reflection blur. Her eyes looked bigger that way, like she was peering at me from the other side of frosted ice. "Do you know how this ends?" I whispered. The fog thinned. She didn't answer. Of course she didn't. She just stared back at me, perfectly still, perfectly synced, like any other normal reflection in any other normal house at any other normal time. I turned off the light. As I stepped out of the bathroom, I caught one last glimpse in the darkening glass. I was already halfway down the hall. In the mirror, I was still standing there, watching myself walk away. And she was smiling. I don't know what the mirror knows about me. I don't know if it's keeping a record of every lie and every fear, every accident and every near miss, every possible way I could break. But I do know this. If you ever notice your reflection lagging behind you, even just by a fraction of a second, don't ignore it. Because maybe, like me, you'll start by thinking it's nothing. Just tired eyes, just a trick of the light. And then, one night, you'll look up and realize the person in the glass doesn't need you anymore. She already knows what's going to happen. She's just waiting to see whether you'll do what she did. If you've ever had something strange happen with a mirror, or with your own reflection, I want you to tell me. Leave it in the comments. And if you made it this far, stay with me. Listen carefully the next time you're alone in your bathroom at 3 a.m. And if your reflection moves even a heartbeat too late, or a heartbeat too soon, you'll know I'm not the only one.